I left him at the altar, destroyed the man I loved, and thought I'd never see him again. But now he's the only one who can save my brother's life. Find out what happens next. 5 years. I'd avoided this moment for 5 years. But now, standing outside Julian Thorne's office, I had no choice. My younger brother's life depended on the man whose heart I'd shattered. "He won't see you," his assistant said, not unkindly. She knew our history, everyone in the city did. The golden couple who'd imploded spectacularly, publicly, devastatingly. "Tell him it's about Leo. Tell him it's life or death." She disappeared behind the heavy oak door, and I waited, my heart pounding against my ribs like a prisoner begging for release. When she returned, her expression was carefully neutral. "He'll give you 5 minutes." Julian's corner office overlooked the city he'd conquered in the years since I'd destroyed him. He stood at the window, his back to me, every line of his body radiating the fury he'd perfected into an art form. 4 minutes, 50 seconds, he said without turning around. His voice was colder than I remembered, harder. I'd done that to him. Taken the warm, trusting man I'd loved and turned him into this glacier. "Leo needs a bone marrow transplant. You're the only match." Now he turned, and seeing his face again was like being struck by lightning, devastating and illuminating all at once. He was more handsome than he'd been at 25, success having carved his features into something almost cruelly beautiful. But his eyes, God, his eyes were empty when they looked at me. "And you thought I'd help you, after what you did," he laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're even more delusional than I remembered, Gabriella." "Julian, please. He's dying. He's 23 years old and he's dying, and you're his only hope." "Like I was your only hope, your only love. How'd that work out?" He moved closer, and I could smell his cologne, the same one that used to cling to my skin. "You married my brother 6 hours after leaving me at the altar. 6 hours. You want mercy from me. You chose the wrong Thorne brother for that." "I know what I did was unforgivable." "Then why are you here?" "Because you're a better man than Marcus ever was. Because despite everything, I know you wouldn't let an innocent person die just to punish me." Something flickered across his face, pain, maybe, or memory. "You don't know me anymore, Gabriella. You made sure of that 5 years ago." But he didn't say no, and that tiny sliver of hope was all I had to cling to. Julian walked to his desk, every movement controlled, calculated. He'd always been passionate, spontaneous. Now he was a man who'd learned to lock everything away. "I'll do it," he said finally. "I'll save your brother's life." Relief crashed over me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. Thank you so much." "I'm not finished." His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. "I have conditions." Of course he did. Nothing with Julian was ever simple, and I'd forfeited the right to his generosity the day I walked down the aisle with Marcus. "Anything," I said, "whatever you want." "Careful making promises you can't keep, Gabriella. You're very good at breaking those." He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "Here's what's going to happen. I'll give your brother my bone marrow. I'll save his life. But in exchange, you're going to give me 6 months." "6 months of what?" "Of you, living in my penthouse. Available whenever I want you. Playing the devoted girlfriend for the cameras, the society events, the business dinners where your presence would be advantageous." My stomach dropped. "You want me to be your, what? Your hired companion?" "I want what you promised me 5 years ago and failed to deliver. I want the world to see Gabriella Martinez on my arm, smiling for the cameras, proof that I won, that I moved on, that you came crawling back." His smile was cruel. "Consider it payment for your brother's life." "That's insane. I'm not some prize you can show off." "No, you're a woman who needs something from me, and I'm nomming my price. 6 months, Gabriella. You live with me, you smile when I tell you to smile, you play the part of the woman who finally realized she made a mistake. And at the end of 6 months, I'll let you go. Your brother lives, I get my revenge, and we never have to see each other again." Every cell in my body screamed to refuse. But then I thought of Leo, pale and weak in his hospital bed, his wife holding his hand while their toddler played in the corner, oblivious to the fact that Daddy was dying. What about Marcus? I asked quietly. What about him? You're divorced, aren't you? For 3 years now, but he's still your brother. Marcus stopped being my brother the day he married you. Julian's voice could have cut glass. He made his choice. You made yours. Now you get to live with the consequences. I took a shaky breath. If I agree to this, if I give you these 6 months, you'll do the transplant immediately. The moment you sign the contract, my lawyers will have drawn up by tonight. You really hate me that much. He moved closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to remember what it felt like when those eyes looked at me with love instead of loathing. No, Gabriella, he whispered. I hate myself for still wanting you despite everything you've done. This arrangement benefits us both. You get your brother's life. I get closure. 6 months to exorcise your ghost from my system once and for all. Fine, I said, lifting my chin. 6 months, but Julian, I know you think you're punishing me, but you're wrong. Living with you, being reminded every day of what I lost, what I destroyed, that's already my punishment. You won't need to inflict more pain. I'm already drowning in it. His expression shifted, something almost like surprise crossing his features before the mask slammed back down. We'll see, he said. Be at my penthouse by 8 tonight. And Gabriella, pack light. I like you better in my clothes anyway. Julian's penthouse was a monument to success and loneliness, all glass, steel, and empty spaces where warmth should have been. He'd taken everything soft about himself and buried it beneath sharp edges and cold surfaces. Your room, he said, gesturing to a guest suite that was bigger than the apartment I'd been living in. We'll maintain separate bedrooms. I may be forcing you to play a role, but I won't force anything else. The clarification should have relieved me. Instead, it felt like another rejection, another reminder of how thoroughly I'd destroyed what we'd had. The contract's on the table. Read it. Sign it. Your brother's surgery is scheduled for next week. I read through the pages of legalese, each clause a humiliation. I would attend all social functions he required. I would be affectionate in public. I would not speak to the press without his approval. I would not embarrass him. I would not, under any circumstances, contact Marcus. That last one hurt, not because I wanted to contact Marcus. That marriage had been a disaster from the start, but because it meant Julian knew. He knew that Marcus and I had imploded as spectacularly as Julian and I had, and he was using it. I signed anyway, for Leo. Good girl, Julian said, watching me with those unreadable eyes. Now, let's establish some ground rules. In public, you're mine. You smile, you laugh at my jokes, you touch me like you can't bear to be apart. In private, we're strangers sharing a space. Understand? Perfectly. Excellent. There's a charity gala tomorrow night. I've already had a dress delivered to your room. Wear it. Your job starts now. That night, I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, and allowed myself to cry. Not for the situation I was in, but for the girl I'd been 5 years ago. The girl who'd had everything and thrown it away because she was scared, stupid, and convinced that Marcus's dangerous charm was somehow better than Julian's steady devotion. I'd been so wrong. The next morning, I woke to find Julian in the kitchen, making coffee. He was in running clothes, his hair damp with sweat, and for a moment, he looked like the man I'd fallen in love with. Then he saw me and the shutters came down. Rough night, he asked, noticing my swollen eyes. I'll be fine. You'd better be. We have an audience tonight, and I need you perfect. He poured a cup of coffee and slid it across the counter. Still take it with cream and 2 sugars. The fact that he remembered broke something inside me. Yes. Some things never change, he said, but there was no warmth in it. Get ready. My stylist will be here at 2 to make sure you look the part. He left me standing there with my coffee. And I realized that 6 months of this, of being so close to him, yet completely shut out, might destroy me more completely than anything else ever had. But I'd earned this. Every moment of pain, every slice of humiliation, every second of longing for something I'd thrown away. I'd made my bed. Now I'd lie in it alone in Julian's penthouse while he punished us both. The dress was stunning. a deep emerald that brought out my eyes and clung to curves I'd forgotten I had. The stylist had transformed me into someone who looked confident, expensive, worthy of being on Julian Thorne's arm. But inside, I was terrified. "You look perfect," Julian said when I emerged. He was devastating in his tuxedo, and the way his eyes darkened when he saw me sent unwanted heat through my veins. "Exactly what I need." "A trophy." "A statement," he offered his arm. "Shall we?" The gala was a who of the city's elite, and the moment we walked in together, the whispers started. Gabriella Martinez and Julian Thorne, together again after the scandal that had rocked their world. The jilted groom and the runaway bride, reunited. Julian's hand was warm on my lower back, possessive and gentle all at once. "Smile," he whispered in my ear. "You're madly in love with me, remember." I smiled, and it wasn't entirely fake. Being this close to him, feeling his body against mine, remembering what we'd once been, it was torture and heaven combined. "Julian and Gabriella, what a surprise." The voice belonged to Patricia Winters, society columnist and notorious gossip. Her eyes were bright with curiosity. "I didn't realize you two had reconciled." "Some things are worth fighting for," Julian said smoothly, pulling me closer. "I've spent 5 years trying to forget her. Turns out I'd rather spend the rest of my life forgiving her instead." The words hit me like a physical blow. He said them for the cameras, for the gossip mill, but there was something in his voice that sounded almost real. "How romantic," Patricia cooed. "And Marcus, how does he feel about this reunion?" "Marcus is irrelevant," Julian said, his voice going cold. "He was a mistake we both made. Now, if you'll excuse us, I'd like to dance with my girlfriend." He pulled me onto the dance floor, and suddenly we were pressed together, moving to music that felt too intimate, too familiar. "You're doing well," he said against my hair. "Very convincing." "So are you," I whispered back, almost like you mean it. His hand tightened on my waist. "Don't confuse performance with reality, Gabriella. I'm very good at pretending. You should know, you taught me." The song ended, but he didn't let go. Instead, his lips brushed my temple, sending shivers down my spine. "Time to really sell it," he murmured, then kissed me. It was supposed to be for show, a public display to cement the narrative. But the moment his lips touched mine, 5 years of anger, longing, and regret exploded between us. The kiss deepened, turned desperate, and I forgot where we were, forgot the cameras, forgot everything except the taste of him and the way my body remembered his. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were wild, confused, as lost as I felt. "Julian," I started, but he cut me off. "Don't, that was for them." He gestured to the room full of people staring at us. "Nothing more." But we both knew he was lying. After the gala, Julian didn't speak to me for 3 days. He worked late, avoided the penthouse, and communicated only through terse texts about upcoming events. The kiss had shattered something between us, the careful distance we'd been maintaining. Leo's transplant was successful. I visited him every day at the hospital, watching my baby brother slowly regain his strength, knowing that Julian had saved him even while hatting me. The guilt was crushing. "You look tired," Leo said one afternoon, his wife Sarah having taken their daughter for ice cream. "Julian working you too hard." I'd told Leo about the arrangement. He deserved to know the price of his life. He'd been horrified, wanted to refuse the transplant, but I'd convinced him. Some sacrifices were worth making. "It's complicated," I said. "You still love him." It wasn't a question. I never stopped. That's what makes this so hard. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me, and now I'm living in the ruins of what we could have been. "Then tell him why you did it. Tell him the truth." He'd never believe me, and even if he did, it wouldn't change anything. I still chose Marcus. I still left Julian at the altar. Nothing explains that away. But Leo was right. Julian deserved the truth, even if it destroyed me to give it to him. That night, I waited up for Julian. When he finally came home at midnight, he looked exhausted, haunted. "We need to talk," I said. "I'm tired, Gabriella." I need to tell you why I married Marcus. He froze, his entire body going rigid. I don't want to hear. Your father threatened to destroy my family. The words exploded out of me, 5 years of secrets finally breaking free. 2 days before our wedding, Frederick Thorne came to my apartment. He had files on my father's business, proof of financial irregularities that would have sent him to prison, destroyed my mother, put Leo on the streets. He said if I married you, he'd make sure my father went to jail. But if I married Marcus instead, he'd make everything disappear. Julian's face had gone white. What? Marcus was the problem child, the one who partied, who embarrassed the family. Your father thought if Marcus had a respectable wife, it would settle him down, make him worthy of the Thorne name. And he knew I was desperate enough to agree. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have fought him. You would have chosen me over your inheritance, your company, everything. And your father made it clear, if you fought him, he'd destroy both our families. I couldn't let you sacrifice everything for me. So you sacrificed us instead. His voice was hollow. I thought I was protecting you. I thought, my voice broke. I thought Marcus and I could make it work, that maybe I could learn to love him, that the sacrifice would be worth it. But Marcus never wanted me. He wanted his father's approval, and I was just the tool to get it. The marriage was a disaster from day one. Julian sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. 5 years. You let me hate you for 5 years. You had every right to hate me. No, he said, looking up with eyes full of anguish. I had the right to the truth, to fight for us, to make my own choice about what I was willing to sacrifice. I know, I'm sorry, I'm so. He was on his feet, crossing to me, his hands gripping my shoulders. Is my father why you divorced Marcus? Frederick died 2 years ago. The threats died with him. I left Marcus the next week. And you never thought to tell me, to come to me. What was I supposed to say? Sorry I destroyed your life, but it was all a misunderstanding. You'd built a life without me. You were better off. He kissed me, fierce, desperate, angry, and full of longing. We stumbled toward his bedroom, tearing at each other's clothes, 5 years of pain and love and fury channeling into frantic touches. We made love like we were trying to erase the past, rewrite history, reclaim what we'd lost. And when it was over, lying tangled in his sheets, Julian held me close and whispered, I don't know how to forgive you. I don't expect you to, I whispered back. But he didn't let go. Waking up in Julian's arms felt like coming home and trespassing simultaneously. His chest was warm beneath my cheek, his heartbeat steady, and for a perfect moment, I let myself pretend the last 5 years hadn't happened. Then he stirred, and reality crashed back in. This doesn't change anything, he said, his voice rough with sleep. The contract still stands. We still have 5 months left. I know. And I'm still angry. Knowing why you did it doesn't erase the pain. I know that too. He pulled me closer, contradicting his words. But I can't seem to let you go. I've tried for 5 years and I can't. Over the next weeks, we existed in a strange limbo. In public, we were the perfect couple, affectionate, attentive, clearly in love. In private, we were 2 people circling each other warily, drawn together by a connection neither of us could sever but terrified to fully embrace. We made love often, desperately, like we were trying to communicate through touch what we couldn't say with words. But afterward, Julian would retreat behind his walls, leaving me alone with my regrets. Then Marcus appeared at a business dinner Julian had dragged me to. Well, Marcus said, his smile sharp and dangerous. The happy couple, how touching. Julian's hand tightened on mine. Marcus, I didn't know you'd be here. Father's old business partner invited me. Thought I should know my brother and ex-wife are playing house. His eyes found mine, cold and calculating. Does he know you're only here because you need something, Gabriella? That you're using him again? That's enough, Julian said, his voice deadly quiet. Is it? Have you told him about our last conversation, Gabriella? About what you said? Ice filled my veins. Marcus was bluffing. He had to be. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. We haven't spoken in 3 years, I said firmly. Haven't we? Marcus pulled out his phone, playing a recording. My voice, distorted but recognizable. I don't love him. I never did. Julian was always just a means to an end. It was fake. It had to be. But the words hit Julian like a physical blow. That's not real, I said desperately. Marcus, you faked that. Did I? Or are you just using him again, playing the same game you played before? Julian stood abruptly. We're leaving. In the car, he was silent, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Julian, you know that recording is fake. Do I? How do I know what's real with you, Gabriella? How do I know this whole thing isn't just another manipulation? Because I love you, the words exploded out of me. I've loved you since I was 23 years old. I loved you when I left you at the altar. I loved you through 3 years of a miserable marriage, and I love you now. Everything I did was wrong, but it was all to protect you. He pulled the car over, turning to face me with eyes full of anguish and hope and fear. Say it again. I love you, Julian Thorne. I never stopped. This time when he kissed me, it felt like forgiveness. Julian hired investigators to prove Marcus had faked the recording. Within a week, we had evidence, digital footprints, voice synthesis software, even testimony from the tech guy Marcus had hired to create it. Why? I asked when we confronted Marcus at his office. Why do this? The marriage is over. We're all moving on. Because Julian always gets everything, Marcus spat. He's the golden child, the successful one, the one father actually loved. I got you as a consolation prize, and even that was just father's manipulation. But watching you two together, actually happy, I couldn't stand it. You're pathetic, Julian said coldly. You've spent your entire life competing with me instead of building your own life. Gabriella was never your prize. She was always mine. And unlike you, I'm not letting her go. After Marcus left, Julian pulled me close. I'm sorry I doubted you, even for a moment. You had every reason to. No, I should have trusted what I feel when I'm with you, what I've always felt. He tilted my chin up. I love you, Gabriella. I've loved you since we were 23, through 5 years of trying to hate you, through all of this mess. I love you. Tears streamed down my face, even after everything I've done. You made an impossible choice to protect the people you love. Yes, you should have trusted me with the truth. But you were 23, terrified, and facing down a powerful man who threatened everything you held dear. I understand now, and I forgive you. Just like that. No, not just like that. I've been forgiving you piece by piece over these past weeks, falling in love with you all over again. I've fought it, resented it, but it's the truth. You're it for me, Gabriella. You always have been. We made love that night different from before, slow, tender, full of promises instead of pain. And afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Julian asked the question I'd been both longing for and dreading. Move in with me, really move in, not as part of a contract or an arrangement, as my partner, my love, my future. The 6 months aren't up. I'm tearing up the contract. I don't want you here out of obligation. I want you here because you choose me, choose us, choose the life we should have had 5 years ago. Yes, I whispered, 1,000 times yes. But happiness never lasts without one final test. The next morning, I woke to find Julian's phone buzzing with news alerts. Someone had leaked our story to the press, all of it. My deal with Frederick Thorne, the forced marriage to Marcus, Julian's arrangement with me, everything. The headlines were brutal. Thorne's scandal, blackmail, betrayal, and a love story gone wrong. Julian stood at the window, reading his tablet, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry, I said. I'll fix this. There's nothing to fix. He turned to me, and his eyes were calm. Let them write their stories. Let them judge. I don't care anymore, Gabriella. All I care about is you. But your reputation, your business. We'll survive together. He pulled me close. No more secrets, no more hiding. We tell the truth, we stand together, and we build the life we should have had. Julian called a press conference, and against all advice from his PR team, we faced the cameras together. 5 years ago, my father blackmailed the woman I loved into marrying my brother, Julian began, his hand tight around mine. He threatened her family, manipulated us both, and destroyed what should have been the happiest day of our lives. Gabriella made an impossible choice to protect the people she loved. I've spent 5 years angry at the wrong person. Today, I'm setting the record straight. The questions came rapid fire, brutal and invasive, but Julian deflected them all with calm authority. When they asked if we were back together, he smiled, genuinely smiled for the first time in public. We never really ended. We've just spent 5 years finding our way back to each other. And yes, we're together. Permanently. After the conference, the response was mixed. Some praised our honesty. Others condemned us for airing private family drama. But slowly, the narrative shifted. We became not a scandal, but a love story, two people who'd survived manipulation, betrayal, and their own mistakes to find their way home. Leo's recovery was complete. He, Sarah, and their daughter moved into a new house, one Julian had quietly purchased for them. When Leo tried to refuse, Julian simply said, "You're going to be my brother-in-law. Family takes care of family." My parents, who I'd barely spoken to since the truth came out, reached out. My father, especially, was devastated by the role he'd unwittingly played in Frederick's manipulation. "I'm so sorry," he said, tears in his eyes. "If I'd known what he was threatening you with." "It wasn't your fault. Frederick was a master manipulator." I hugged him tight. "We're okay now, all of us." The Thorne family business was in chaos, with the board demanding answers about Frederick's past actions. Julian, as the eldest son and primary shareholder, took control and implemented sweeping changes. Marcus resigned in disgrace, moving across the country to start over. "Do you think he'll be okay?" I asked Julian one night. "Eventually. Marcus needs to figure out who he is without trying to be me. Maybe this will finally force him to do that." "Do you think you'll ever have a relationship with him again?" "Maybe, someday, when we've both healed." He pulled me onto his lap. "But right now, I'm more interested in our relationship than anything Marcus is doing." 6 months after our press conference, Julian took me back to the venue where our wedding was supposed to have happened 5 years ago. It had been converted to an art gallery, but the gardens were the same, full of the white roses I'd chosen for our ceremony. "I've been thinking," Julian said as we walked through the roses, "about second chances and new beginnings, about how sometimes the universe gives you another shot at happiness if you're brave enough to take it." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring, the same ring he'd chosen 5 years ago that I'd given back the day I left. "I want to do this right. No contracts, no arrangements, no shadows from the past. Gabriella Martinez, will you marry me? For real this time. Forever this time." I was crying, laughing, nodding. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding happened 3 months later. This time, I walked down the aisle with no doubts, no fears, no regrets. My father gave me away with tears in his eyes. Leo stood as Julian's best man, Sarah as my maid of honor. Our families, healed, whole, happy, watched as we exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. "Gabriella," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion, 5 years ago I lost you. I spent those years building a life that looked successful but felt empty. When you came back, I thought I wanted revenge. Instead, I found redemption. You taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other even when circumstances are terrible. You're my choice, today and always." My own vows. "Julian, I broke us once out of fear and misguided protection. I thought I was saving you, but I was only destroying us both. You've given me something I didn't deserve, a second chance. I promise to never make decisions for us alone again. I promise to trust you with the truth, even when it's hard. I promise to love you fiercely, honestly, and forever. We lost 5 years, but we have the rest of our lives to make up for it." When he kissed me, it felt like every piece of my life finally clicking into place. The reception was a celebration not just of our marriage, but of survival. Leo made a toast about the brother-in-law who'd saved his life. My father spoke about second chances and forgiveness. Even Julian's mother, who'd been silent throughout the scandal, stood to speak. "My late husband did terrible things," she said, her voice clear and strong. "He manipulated, controlled, and hurt the people he claimed to love. But from those ashes, something beautiful grew. Gabriella and Julian, you've shown us all that love can survive anything if you're brave enough to fight for it. That night in the honeymoon suite, Julian and I made love with the joy of people who'd earned their happiness through pain and perseverance. And afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, he whispered the words that made everything worth it. I forgive you, Gabriella, completely, fully, forever. I forgive myself too, I whispered back. Finally. We'd spent 5 years apart, months fighting our way back to each other, and now we had forever. And we weren't wasting another second. The house Julian built for us was nothing like his sterile penthouse. It was warm, full of light and laughter, and the chaos of children. Our twin daughters, Rose and Lily, were 3 years old and currently helping their Uncle Leo paint in the garden while his sons supervised. They're going to be covered in paint, I said, watching from the kitchen window. They're having fun, Julian countered, wrapping his arms around my waist. Let them be kids. He'd changed over the years, softened, opened up, learned to let joy in. I'd changed too, found my confidence, started my own nonprofit helping families facing medical crises, became the woman I was always meant to be. I've been thinking, Julian said against my neck, about that contract I made you sign 5 years ago. The one you tore up. I want to rewrite it, new terms. I turned in his arms. Oh, really? And what would these new terms be? 6 months became 5 years became forever. I'm locking you in, Gabriella Thorne. No escape clause, no end date. Just us, building this life, raising these kids, growing old together. Sounds legally binding. Emotionally binding, he corrected. Spiritually binding, every way that matters binding. I accept your terms, I said, kissing him. Although I should warn you, I'm terrible at following contracts. I know, you ran from the first one, fought the second one, and turned the third one into something beautiful. He smiled, that full, genuine smile I'd worked years to earn. I wouldn't have it any other way. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, we sat on the porch watching the stars. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't needed Leo's transplant? I asked. If we'd never reconnected. Every day, Julian admitted. We would have wasted our lives apart, too proud and hurt to reach out. I'm grateful for that transplant, not because Leo was sick, but because it forced us to face each other, to deal with the past instead of running from it. He swore he'd never forgive me, I said softly. That's what you told your assistant, remember, when I first came to your office. I did say that, I meant it too at the time. He pulled me closer. But then you stayed, you fought, you told me the truth. And I realized that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about choosing love over anger, choosing a future over a past, choosing us over resentment. And now I can't let go, don't want to let go, will never let go. He kissed my temple. You're stuck with me, sunshine, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. We already did those vows, I teased. And I meant every word. Every day I choose you. Every day I forgive us both for the time we lost. Every day I'm grateful we found our way back. In the distance, I could hear our daughters' laughter from their bedroom. Sarah was reading them a story before bed, giving us a moment alone. Leo's recovery had been complete. He'd gone back to work, started living fully again. My parents had retired to Florida, happy and at peace. Even Marcus had reached out last year, sober and working on himself, tentatively rebuilding bridges with Julian. Everything that had been broken was slowly healing. Thank you, I whispered to Julian. For what? For not letting me go, for holding on when I didn't deserve it, for loving me enough to forgive me. Thank you for coming back, for fighting for us, for giving me daughters who have your smile and your stubbornness. He stood, pulling me to my feet. Come on, let's go say goodnight to our girls. We walked inside together, hand in hand, and I thought about the scared 23-year-old I'd been, the one who'd thought running away was protecting the man she loved. I'd been so wrong. Protection wasn't in distance or sacrifice. It was in trust, in honesty, in standing together against whatever came. Julian had sworn he'd never forgive me, but love had other plans. And now, 5 years after nearly losing everything, we had it all. The life we should have had, the family we'd built, and the forever we'd fought so hard to claim. He'd sworn he'd never forgive me, but now he wouldn't let go. And I'd never been more grateful for a broken promise in my life.